I want my work, in essence, my intellectual property that comes out in the academy and in my books and in my coaching. I really want it to live on after I'm no longer here. I want to know in my heart that um, everything I've developed will have a legacy. And I think for many people my age, that's one of the things that we look for.
Hello, welcome to EdTech Leaders, and today I am pleased to welcome Dr. Maria Nemeth, the founder for Academy for Coaching Excellence. And let's just launch right in and
Absolutely.
say, who do you serve and what do you do for them?
Well, first of all, I just want you to know how pleased I am to be talking with you. I've waited for this for a long time, and thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you so
Uh,
much.
I serve uh, people in a number of different ways. I'm a coach. I coach executives and entrepreneurs literally all over the world. I've been coaching people now for almost 40 years. I know that dates me, but nevertheless, that's the case. Although I got my PhD in psychology from UCLA, I no longer practice as a psychologist, but mostly as a coach. I write. I've written 3 books, and I'm writing my next one, which is called Living Without Regret. And, my aim is whenever someone interacts with me, that they come away with something that they can use in their life, something that makes a difference. And that's what I've taught myself to do. And that's what we teach the coaches who are at the Academy for Coaching Excellence to do. Always provide value for your clients. So, in a nutshell, that's what I do.
And that value can be in many different forms. It sounds like there's a key focus on just practical improvements in your life. Is that correct?
Well, it's really focused. I'm glad you're asking me this, Oliver. It's focused on something I call transformation. Transformation is different from change. A lot of people talk nowadays about transformation, but what they're really describing is change. Like you change your perspective, you can change your clothes that you're wearing. But transformation is something that when you experience it, it puts you into a different level of um, awareness, different level of appreciation for your life, a sense of gratitude for being exactly who you are right now, doing what you love to do best. And so when a transformation transpires, the client, I also run groups as well as seeing uh, individuals and corporate teams, as a matter of fact. When there is a transformation in the way people see one another, there's no going back. I'll give you an example. Joseph Campbell wrote a book called Hero with a Thousand Faces. It was very influential for George Lucas, who said, if it weren't for Joe Campbell, the Star Wars would never have gotten off the page. And Joseph Campbell was dedicated to having people see that they are the heroes on their life's path, and that what they do does influence and does make a difference to people around them. And he's proposed certain things, and then I've developed other things in the courses that we teach at the Academy, certain principles and tools that people can use to literally shift how they, for example, see the other person. So on a team, for example, or with a leader who's having trouble with the staff or the people under them, I teach them a way of viewing these people that they begin to develop trust and a sense of ease, and they let the leadership in rather than pushing it away. That's the kind of transformation I'm talking about. I hope I'm being clear
No,
enough.
it's fascinating, which leads me to wonder, do people know what they're getting into? Do people come to you asking for change and they get more of a transformation than they realized? Or do they know maybe enough about you to actually expect that transformation? Doesn't sound like a very typical corporate request.
It is not. It's usually when a leader asks me to coach them, it's because they're experiencing a problem or a dilemma. They're experiencing that they're stuck in some way, and they want to find a way out of this sense of being stuck. Like, what do I do next with my staff? What do I do next in terms of moving the corporation ahead without without so much backlash? And so I work with the leader to see how to present themselves as someone who trusts the people around them, because I've discovered, Oliver, that the primary issue, if you want people to trust you, is to learn to trust them first. And so when leaders see that they've been doing things the hard way, and I always ask people, would it be okay with you if life got easier? The answer is invariably yes. And then we proceed for them to learn to see things in a different way than they've seen them.
So this is probably not an easy answer, but can you give us some kind of insight into how this transformation happens? Whether it's like one specific example or just
Well,
some idea.
yeah, let me give you an example from my own life. And you and I were talking about this a little earlier before the podcast. One day in Los Angeles, I live in Sacramento, California, but one day I was working in Los Angeles and I had occasion to drive around before I went to the airport, and I saw some beautiful places, and the sky was clear and I could see the mountains. I was really happy. Then at Burbank, we get into the plane. And as we're going to Sacramento, uh, we're belted in, we take off, and we're climbing, 5,000 feet, great. 10,000 feet, okay. Then we hit like 14,000 feet. And I look down, okay, Oliver, and I observe that Los Angeles has a bunch of smog that I didn't see because I was driving in it, and I was seeing relatively clear uh, mountains and stuff. But when we went to this 15,000 feet, I saw everything so clearly. I saw the ocean sparkling. As we rose up, I could see the mountains. And it was, isn't that just what transformation is all about? That one learns to lift oneself up above the fray, the smog of what do I do now? Uh, this is the problem, and learns to, because I show them how to lift themselves out of it so they can observe. And in observing, they begin to see what to do next that they hadn't seen before. But first, you have to observe the condition in which you're operating. I hope that's clear.
Yeah. So is that about observing their own behaviors, their own patterns, as well as other people's and the situation, like all of those things? Or is it mostly about sort of seeing their own patterns that are
Yes, it,
beginning to go
yes,
south?
it's about seeing how I'm currently operating. Is life difficult? Am I, as a leader, for example, many people come to me and they, you know, the business is successful. Uh, they've seen it, they've worked hard on it, and it's going well. But they say, okay, I was successful, but is that really all that I'm doing? It, is this contributing to me, to our customers? Is this really providing value? Or is there something more I have to learn in order to lead more successfully and not constantly be under the stress and the struggle I'm in? Because we all know how stressful it is to be a leader in a business nowadays with the changing conditions. So how can I find a stable point of reference so that I can discern with more ease what to do?
Hmm. So it sounds like part of that is a purpose that sort of other things
Exactly.
can center around.
Exactly. Exactly. And that the purpose is something you see as valuable. It's not something it's not a quote that you've read in a book,
Hmm.
you know, because books can take us so far. I mean, there's so many books now on leadership and business, etc. But at the end, I've read all this. I know the best quotes, but it doesn't seem to be affecting the quality of my life.
Hmm.
And as a result, it may be also affecting the quality of my relationships with my staff. And is there something else other than this constant stress and struggle such that I can bring value not only to the business, not only to the people who work and the clients and the customers, but I can really have the sense that I'm doing what I've come here to do.
Hmm. It does sound transformational. So
Yes.
let's step back
It's
and talk about your background. So I cut you off.
Oh, I was going to say
Briefly.
it's fun too. It's not a heavy thing, you know? I love to see the look in people's faces when they kind of go, "Oh my goodness, I see that." It's it's much easier that way.
Mhm. But this
So
can be
please.
fun. This can be fun after all. Maybe not such a struggle as it seems.
Exactly, exactly, because the struggle and the stress, when you look back on your life and you see everything you've done, but also you see this smog of struggle,
Hmm.
you begin to ask yourself the question, might there be more ease? And might I really be doing what I know I'm meant to be doing?
Hmm. It sounds pretty important.
Yeah.
Um, so let's step back. How did you get into coaching? Becoming a coach.
Yeah, well, because uh, I had a psychotherapeutic practice for many years, and one of the things I discovered that was that at a certain point, a client, back in the days we called them patient, but now we call them clients. A client would say to me, "Dr. Maria, you really helped me with my crisis and with my worries and my doubts, and I really feel much better. Um, how can I plan out the rest of my life?" And I saw, as a psychologist, I didn't have they didn't have that skill set. That's not what we taught at UCLA. Everything was based upon pathology, not about what you do when that pathology is gone, you
Hmm.
know? And I saw that coaching can take people from the point of um, really having handled much of the stress and strain in their lives having to do with crises and dilemmas like that, psychological stuff. And after that, I said, how can I do this? And I saw people back then, Oliver, who were actually practicing coaching. This was like 35 years ago, like that, maybe 30 years ago. It was just the beginning. And, we had voice coaches, we had drama coaches, but no one had a life coach, a personal coach, someone who could help them formulate and live into a life that is satisfactory, that is productive, that really gives them a sense that now that I've handled all this stuff, how am I going to live the rest of my life? You know? And so I studied with people who I saw were masters at this coaching and started developing my own methodology because I'd read a lot. I'd worked with people who I really looked up to, and that's how my coaching began.
So I also want to clarify for listeners, I introduced you as the founder for Academy for Coaching Excellence. Now, in that business, you train other coaches,
Oh,
correct? You
yes.
teach
Oh,
them.
yes.
And then you also are still have your practice of
Yes.
coaching.
Yes, I do. I do. Because I love to coach people. I love to see the smile on their face when they're getting finally their own strength and their own ability, and they're practicing the life that they're meant to be living. That's where a sense of clarity and focus and ease and even grace. The gateway to grace is gratitude.
Hmm.
And they become grateful for their lives. And it's just wonderful to see how it affects their family, their business, and most of all themselves.
Hmm. How does the path look for people? How long does it take? And I imagine it can vary a lot, but
It does. And over the years, I've learned to be very flexible with people and their needs and their schedules because, as I said, when I started years ago, you could predict, okay, 6 sessions with me, 10 sessions, 12 sessions. And to tell you the truth, when someone starts with me, we just start.
hmm,
And after a couple, 3 sessions, then I engage. I mean, after they're producing results, and
mhm,
then we engage in how many times would you really like to see me?
mhm,
And
mhm,
invariably, they create their own plan, which is wonderful because this is what they've said. Because, when you have a plan, it's, eh, it's my plan that I've asked
mhm,
them to squeeze into. But I
hmm,
much rather have people talk with me about their plan. Some people, I have to tell you, some people have been seeing me for years because they get so much out of, I mean, really, they derive so much reinforcement and acknowledgement for themselves because they begin to see it. So a person might start out seeing me every other week for maybe 10 sessions, 12 sessions. Sometimes some people have seen me twice a week for 10 months because they want to see me that much. And after a while, then sometimes people say, listen, Dr. Maria, let me see you once a month. And then, even then, I've had people who say, okay, I want to see you once a month, but, and I
mhm.
always have a WhatsApp for people, but I really need to see you next week about this thing. And so sometimes it ends up being more.
Mhm, mhm. Okay, let's switch over. This is so fascinating. I want to keep going, but I also want to cover your business growth and that journey. So when you started coaching, I'm going to touch on one question. When you started this, was it immediately satisfying to you? Was there a journey in finding purpose within it, or was immediately like, this is it for me? I found what gives me joy.
Yes, it was pretty much that, because by the time I, began coaching people, I'd seen people in psychotherapy for quite a while, and it was no longer as satisfying. And then I learned from some people, you know, one of my mentors was a fellow named Werner Erhard,
Hmm.
who, many years ago, he developed the EST training, and then
Hmm.
later he sold his business to folks who, uh, have Landmark. I studied with him when he had developed the EST training because it's a little different than Landmark. And I would literally, I know this sound a little weird, but I would literally sit at his feet sometimes because he chose me to be part of a kind of an inner group, and I'd sit and I'd listen to him, and I wasn't interested in what he was saying, Oliver. I was interested in where is he looking such that these words are coming out of his mouth.
Hmm.
Because if I just copied him,
Hmm.
it didn't live. But if I looked at what was he perceiving about people, about
Hmm.
life, about what it is to be a human being, and I began to see what he was seeing. And out of that, you see, evolved all of my methodology. And wherever it was, you know, fairly directly influenced by him, I would call the office of his attorney and say, "This is what I'm about to do. Do I have your permission?" And they would say yes, because they could see what I was about to do. So that's the beginning of my journey.
Hmm. And did your business grow organically because you were used to being a therapist and you had your private
Yes,
practice and
it
that
was,
grew
yeah,
organically?
it did. And it really began to take off when, after I had written this book called The Energy of Money, and people loved it. Oprah Winfrey had me on her show talking about not only my book, but she had me coaching this mother and her two daughters on some money issues. They had taken a film of it and they played it and had me discuss it and had the mom discuss what she got out of it. And so, it began to blossom, and it grows. It's like a garden sometimes. My calendar, it's fills up, and some people, Oliver, like Calendly, as a
Hmm.
business
Yeah.
strategy. I don't like Calendly because sometimes it crowds out the calendar, and
Hmm.
I don't have the discretion about who I want to see and why. So when people want to talk with me, I have places that they can go to. And I have, for example, an assistant who arranges my calendar and works with the potential client about what's good for them. And we come up with a date and a time. And my first session is always free, always complimentary, because I want to get a sense of who the person is and what they really want, and whether my way of coaching people is something that will work for them or not, you know? So over the years, it's just been such a joy to coach people and, to have a schedule where I can see people. I run groups, and people who are interested in being in a coaching group with me often join because it's a much less, it doesn't cost as much as seeing me individually. and they get a lot out of being with a group that I'm coaching. I have my blog, I have my podcast, The Energy of Money, which is fairly popular. Um, I think it got 93,000 downloads in over the last 18 months or 2 years. And um, I have another one, which I'm going to dust off and reinstitute called coaching. Uh, I think coach training. That's what it was. Coach training, in which I coach someone live, unscripted, and people can see it and listen to it. So it gives me a chance to be creative, Oliver. And
Hmm.
there's those of us who are creatives. Now, one thing about business that I want to say, and then uh, I'll keep quiet about this. Creatives like me, and if any of you are listening and know that you're creatives, we are not meant to run a business.
Well, I'm a film editor is my background, and I run a business, but I hear you.
You know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
I mean, especially if having to do with the Academy for Coaching Excellence, which, it's internationally known and is accredited. And when people graduate, they have a an accreditation, a certification that is accepted worldwide from the International Coach Federation. But I saw that I could take it only so far. And someone who really knew a lot about business should really become the CEO. And so I did. I invited someone. His name is Tom Lenoble. He's a
Well,
brilliant,
he's we have a podcast with him that we did a while back. Yeah.
he's a brilliant, brilliant man. And he, because he loves this work so much, he nominated himself to be the CEO for a while. And thank heavens, because my staff loves him. They're growing in different ways that I couldn't have thought in terms of a business sense. Ask me to create a course and I'll do it. Ask me to write an article, I'll do it. Writing a book, I'm doing it. A creative.
Hmm. Well, business is a different kind of creative, though. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
different mindset.
Yes.
From your point of view, so it'll be interesting to hear from your point of view as a creative, the business transformation of Academy for Coaching Excellence. How do you perceive it? What are the things that have made it change and grow?
Well, creating various ways in which the academy can become recognized in the marketplace. When I started the Academy for Coaching Excellence, Oliver, there were, this is 26, 27 years ago, there were about 40 schools internationally in the whole world that taught coaching. 40. Now, especially after the pandemic, there are thousands. Literally, the marketplace has swollen, and there are a few good schools, but you know how it is when people see an idea and want to open up something like, come train with us for 3 months or 6 months and you'll become a coach, which really is not what it takes to become a professional coach certified through the International Coach Federation. So Tom works with his staff to create various means of reaching out to the public, saying, wait a second, we're here. We've
Mhm.
been here. You can count on us to provide you with great training.
And I think we spoke to Tom about some of the marketing initiatives and things that you're working on. So where from here? Where would you like to see your private practice, Academy for Coaching Excellence in the next year? What's the dream?
Well, I love that question. I'm 82, and when you're, you know, uh, thankfully have had these many years under your belt, the questions you ask are a little more poignant, I'd say. I want my work, in essence, my intellectual property that comes out in the academy and in my books and in my coaching. I really want it to live on after I'm no longer here. I want to know in my heart that um, everything I've developed will have a legacy. And I think for many people my age, that's one of the things that we look for. Will the thing live on and thrive when I'm no longer here?
Hmm.
Now, I have no doubt, given the team at ACE and Tom Lenoble heading it up as the CEO, I have no doubt that it's going to happen with the Academy. And I'm hoping that all the books I'm writing will have a legacy and speak for themselves, working with people at various stages of their life. So, when I was 60, I had a birthday cappuccino with myself.
Hmm.
And I was looking at my issues and my worries and my doubts and things that were starting to creep in as being hard. And all of a sudden, I had to laugh. Why? Because I said to myself, what do I want on my tombstone? Here lies Maria. She had issues. And I said, no, wait. I wanted to read something like Here Lies Maria. She loved us. We loved her. And life was just a little bit better because she was in it.
Hmm.
And Oliver, in my work with people, I can tell you, everyone wants that.
Hmm.
They want to know that they were loved, that they loved, and other people felt their love, and that whether it be their business or their presence, whatever it is, and for many of us business people, that it will make a difference, that it has a legacy having to do
Hmm.
with all the energy and the years that you put into it. Does that
Hmm.
make sense?
100%. Yeah. Finding purpose.
Yes, and
And
knowing and having, as you look back on your life, okay, we can see a number of things if you imagine the pathway. First, we can see these beautiful golden paper lanterns that shine on the path, and that represents a dream or something that happened that you are so grateful for. On that path, you also see some little dark splotches. Those are the things that, for whatever reason, uh, you didn't clear up,
hmm.
and you would regret not having cleared it up
Hmm.
as you look through your life. And further, there's this little twinkling glimmer on the path, and that represents a dream that you've always had. That, when you look back on your life, you'd say, I wish I'd done that.
Hmm. Hmm.
For one man, it was very simple. He said, Dr. Maria, and he was in his mid 70s. He said, you know, I've never skied.
Hmm.
I always wanted to
Hmm.
take it up. And I know now it's ridiculous. But we discovered something that he could do, which was snowshoeing. And so he joined a snowshoeing club that had a lot of seniors in it, and they would go on these little hikes in the snow and have food. It's like a picnic.
Hmm.
Just brought him such joy.
Hmm.
So I say to people, you do have a dream that's on your path that you would love to know you've gotten. And no matter what your age, because I
Yeah.
work with some people who are 40 years old. I just finished today with a young man who's 40 and he sees some of those dark splotches.
Hmm.
But clearing things up like that and then going for your dream has you living into a future that is bright and filled with joy and a sense of gratitude that you're doing what you are meant to be doing.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Dr. Maria Nemeth. Thank you for coming. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. And one of the things I appreciate about you are your very thoughtful questions and the way you listened to what I was saying.
Hmm.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you.